And we are back. Welcome to episode 3 of the Sports King.Pod. I'm your host, as always, Dominic, joined again up top by the Price brothers, Daniel and Anthony. And we got a good episode for you. We had a really good weekend in sports yet again. And it all was topped off with the NLCS and the ALCS being decided. The ALCS was decided on Saturday night. The Rays, they were up 3-0 in the series. And then the Astros stormed back, made it 3-3, went to Game 7. The Rays, they prevailed, won the game, advanced to the World Series. And then Sunday night, the Braves and the Dodgers played into Game 7. The Dodgers were down in the series 3-1, came all the way back, forced to Game 7, and then they end up winning the series in a really close Game 7 matchup. Anthony, both series crazy. Teams now are going to meet up in Arlington for the best-of-7 World Series matchup that begins on Tuesday night. What do you see happening in this series?
I see a lot of hitting. These are two very, very talented offensive teams. As you saw tonight with Bellinger hitting that shot to get the go-ahead run. So we're going to see some good pitching duels with Blake Snell versus if it's Dustin May or Kershaw. We'll see who is going to pitch Tuesday. But you're going to see a lot of hitting. This is going to be high run games, and it's going to whoever can out hit the other opponent will win this. I think I have the Rays winning in 7. I think it'll be a long series. I want the Rays to win, and I think they will, but it's going to be Rays in 7, Rays in 6, Dodgers in 6, Dodgers in 7. I don't see a sweep or anything. I think it's going to be a long, exciting series to watch.
That's a very good take. I have to agree with most of that. I think there's going to be a lot of hitting, but then there's also going to be very big periods of time throughout the entire series where the pitching is going to shine. I think the Dodgers are going to put Clayton Kershaw on the bump for Game 1. I'm not exactly sure what the Rays are going to go with, but I think Clayton Kershaw is going to be on the bump for Game 1. I figured they would have used him in Game 7, but they didn't. They started out, Dustin May started. He only went an inning. So I figure I'm imagining Clayton Kershaw is going to get the start Game 1, considering Walker Buehler got the Game 6 start. And then, they'll probably go Walker Buehler Game 2, honestly, in my opinion. I think they would. I think they should. I like your take on the series, too. I don't think anyone's going to get swept. I think this is going to be a good and fun series to watch. I don't know if I can take the Dodgers, though, in all aspects. I think I've gotten so close. I think it was when they played the Astros in 2017. I wanted to take them. And then they played the Red Sox in 2018, and I wanted to take them. But something always happens to them. Something always goes wrong for them. And I thought it was going to happen in this series against the Braves, especially because they went down 3-1. I mean, they came back and won the series, but something always happens to them. And, whether it's bad pitching, whether it's, they can't wake up their bats, they're making defensive mistakes. It just always happens to the Dodgers. It's like no matter what they do in the regular season, and, we've seen it the past couple of years, they've been the best team in the regular season. But they make it to the playoffs, and they start stumbling a little bit. And then they're like, oh, wait, we're the Dodgers. We're the best team in the league. And then they realize, oh, wait, we're the Dodgers. We always choke in the playoffs. So I want to say the Rays are going to win the series. I'd like to say the Dodgers are going to win it because I like the Dodgers team. I think they're one of the most complete teams in MLB. But as I said on a previous podcast, I've liked the Rays since the beginning of the year. I think they cover every single aspect of the ball absolutely perfectly. Their pitching is great. Their hitting is great. Their defense is great. Their bullpen is great. I think all around, they're just one of the most complete teams in the major leagues right now.
All right, I guess I kind of want to give my 2 cents in on this series. So yeah, I definitely agree that ever since the start of the season and during this playoffs, there has been this good feeling about the Rays. They've been very, very good. But I think the Dodgers coming back shows that they're a very resilient team. And I do think it's going to be a close series. And the thing that just may push the Dodgers over the edge this year is that in those recent World Series losses against against the Astros and then against the Red Sox, those were, 2 teams who are they're in the playoffs all the time. They have a lot of, recent success. The Rays, they haven't been in the World Series, right? Since they also
Since
the Rays in
08,
2008. Yeah, so I feel like they may be a bit inexperienced at this stage, and the Dodgers have a lot of experience. So that, may very well kind of help them, even though it does always seem
to
to
that
pick
point,
off.
Dan, I think if experience was going to catch up to them, I think it would have happened by now. Because they just played the Astros in the ALCS, the Rays did. And I feel like if experience was going to catch up to them, it would have happened in that series. But I mean, it kind of did. They were up 3-0, and then they let it slip, and they almost got knocked out, but they didn't. But I think like experience won't be a big issue for this team. I think they've got players on the roster who have been to the playoffs before, and some of them have made decent runs in the playoffs, and they've I don't know where I'm going with this, but they've got guys on the team who have been to the playoffs before. They've got guys who have been here before. They know what they got to do. Again, most of them are pretty young, but they've got Charlie Morton, who was on the Astros when they won the World Series in 2017. So like he's been here before. And that's a good guy to have, especially to your other pitchers. Be like, all right, listen, guys, this is the World Series. This is a different breed, and not to mention how different it's going to be this year. Neither of them are going to be playing in their home stadiums. There's not going to be a whole lot of fans there. I'm not sure how many people they're letting into, the stadium, because they were letting fans in for the NLCS too, but I'm not sure exactly how many. But it's going to be a different atmosphere. Like, they'll know it's the World Series, but they won't, feel like it's the World Series. They'll wear the patch on their hats. They'll have the patch on their shoulder, but it just won't feel like a World Series game, especially because none of them are playing in their homes.
Yeah, and I get your point to that aspect, but like how you said, experience almost caught up to them against the Astros. I mean, I think even though the Astros are definitely a very good team and definitely a very talented team, the Dodgers are, I would say, definitely more talented. So maybe, I think maybe it could catch up, and I definitely like the Rays. I could see either team winning. I think it's going to be a fun series, but for me, I guess I do think that the Dodgers are going to win this year's World Series.
Yeah, for the inexperienced part, and I would say if without a pandemic, I think the away crowd could affect the Rays because, like, you're in LA, they have a bunch of crazy fans out there, and it's like it's a very young team, but they have some veterans like how you said Charlie Morton, Hunter Renfroe. So these are players that have been leading, and I think they will help them a lot just to get the nerves out. It's one of the beauties of the games. It's like just because the Dodgers have more all-stars or older, experienced, on any given day, any team can be beaten, especially in baseball, just the way the ball will roll for you that day. So, like the Rays, like I think the Rays will take this like every other game they had. They did lose momentum because letting the 3-0 run with the Astros come back to a game 7, and the Dodgers have momentum coming back from 3-1. So they just have to take it one pitch at a time. Whoever wins more innings is going to win this game. And there's going to be some big innings for the Dodgers, some big innings for the Rays, but it's really going to be defense that how can we pitch around this batter, because the Dodgers are a home run team, one of the leaders in the MLB. So how can we keep the ball low, because they're going to try to rise it, keep the ball low, keep them off balance up at bat with off speed come in, less fastball. So it will be fun to watch, but I don't think the experience, especially this year without a whole stadium crowded, is going to be a big problem.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun series. I can't argue that point at all. I think this is going to be a really fun series to watch, and I think it's great that we get this because especially the way this all started with baseball, because it was like, all right, back in March we're going to delay spring training 2 weeks, and then we'll be back and we'll be ready to go. We should hopefully be ready by opening day. If not, we can push it back a week or two, and then we'll be okay. And then everything just goes down the drain for MLB. The owners and the players can't agree to what they're going to do. Everyone's like, okay, we're going to get a 140 game season, and then we're not going to get that. And then it's like, okay, we'll get a 120 game season, and then we didn't get that. And then it was a back and forth for the longest time. And then eventually the commissioner stepped in and was like, listen, we're getting a 60 game season. All right. You're going to play with no fans. It's going to suck, but we're going to play baseball, and there's going to be playoffs. And they expanded the playoffs, which I think made it better, honestly. The expanded playoffs were great this year. Adding more teams in. It made it added a whole new aspect to it, which I loved. especially seeing like teams that
New faces, exactly.
new faces and like teams like that. Like most years, you see like really good teams and they're not going to make it in because you saw like a really good team had a really decent record. They had a good year and they didn't get in because they didn't win the division and then they weren't good enough for the wild card spot. But they still deserve to get in, and you would have loved to see them in the playoffs. We got that this year. We got the 2 division winners, and then we got the wild card teams like we always do. So it's good. I like the expanded playoffs. I hope they keep it around. And it's good to see at this point. And, we look at this, and then it makes sense that these 2 teams are here. The best team in the AL, the Rays. The best team in the NL, the Dodgers. So we're getting 1 versus 1. We're getting
Exactly. I was about
the
to
2
say
best
that.
teams in the
The
league.
2 best teams most definitely made it.
That's what we want. We always want to see the best teams playing the best teams and to see to determine who the best team really is. And that's what we're getting, and that's a great thing to have. So that's why I think this World Series is going to be one of the better ones we've seen recently, in all honesty, regardless of who wins it.
And with the Randy Arozarena, said it right. I listened to how the announcers say it, so I'm not messing up no more. With him being on fire, the thing in Game 6 when Valdez pitched for the Astros, he was 0 for 4, 0 for 3. I think it was 0 for 3, and Valdez is a lefty. And earlier in the series when Valdez pitched again, he was 0 for 4 that game, and then they had a lefty reliever. So that is something to look for. He's been hitting off the charts recently. Look for might have a little might be a take hitting streak.
Yeah, he's been insane. However you say his name, because I have not been listening to the commentator say his name. We'll call him Randy. He's been playing out of his mind. He's been hitting home runs almost every at bat. He's been, first year, and he's the best hitter that the Rays have on the roster right now. If you watch the games and you see him, he's just raking. Everything he sees, it's like he's gonna hit a nuke. So it's gonna be really fun to watch him go against the Dodgers pitching, especially Walker Buehler and Clayton Kershaw and Julio Urias. So it's gonna be fun to watch him go up against guys like that, and it's gonna be fun to watch the rest of the Rays lineup go up against guys like that because they've been good all year hitting the ball. So I think to that point, it's gonna be, a good duel between the Rays batting and the Dodgers pitching. And then I guess you can make the same point for it's going to be a good duel between the Rays pitching and the Dodgers batting. I think both ways you look at it, it's going to be fun to watch, and it's going to be a World Series that you shouldn't miss. If you occasionally watch baseball, I would watch this series. If you don't watch baseball at all, I would again watch this series because this is just going to be fun to watch. It's going to make for a really good baseball, especially for this time of the year when the NFL is taking over. All we want to do is wait for Sunday, watch our football games. So I think this is going to be, really good for the sport to have a World Series like this, and just hope for the best. Honestly, I think if it's going to be upsetting if somehow the Dodgers get a 4-0 sweep or the Rays get a 4-0 sweep, unless all the games are 12-10 games that are absolutely insane where everyone's just hitting bombs, then maybe it's okay if someone gets swept. But I think we're going to look at the series and we're going to see it go deep. I'm thinking it's going to end in 6 or 7. And
At least 6.
It's just going to be fun.
6.
It's going to be fun to watch. No matter how many times I say it, you just got to believe me. It's going to be a fun series to watch.
Definitely.
So I think we all got our predictions out. I think, Dan, you said Dodgers were going to win, I believe.
Dodgers, yep.
You think Dodgers in 6 or 7? That's your pick?
I'll go Dodgers in 6.
Dodgers in 6. Anthony, you said 6 or 7 as well, if I would recall. He is muted.
Yeah.
Wonder when he's going to find out.
He's having some technical difficulties. His screen went black.
Again?
So I would suggest folding it into tablet mode and then going back out.
Yeah, he's still muted. Look at this guy. Getting some behind the scenes of the Sports King.Pod, folks.
Mm.
Look at this. This is 2020, recording podcasts on Zoom.
Yeah.
All right, well, while he's trying to figure that out, I'll make my prediction real quick. I believe that I'm going to go along the line with Dan, 6 or 7 games. It's definitely going to go 6 or 7. And I think my official prediction will be Dodgers in 7. I
All
think
right, I'm back.
no matter how uncomfortable I am picking them, I'm going to go Dodgers in 7. If they blow it again, I'll own up to it. I will, I won't cry. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
I'll
I mean,
get
I
over
don't
it.
I don't really mind either of these teams
Correct.
winning
Yeah.
it.
Whoever wins this series is not gonna,
Yeah, so
really affect me in any way. I don't have any ties with the Rays. I don't have any ties with the Dodgers. So I think I would prefer the Rays to win it just because
yeah,
like the Lakers
same.
just won the title. And it's like, do we really need another LA team getting a
LA
title?
versus Florida again.
So all right. Anthony, your prediction for the series. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Every podcast it does it. I just bought this $800 laptop and it barely works. So you can blame Dell or HP. That's what it is. HP.
Good sponsors.
Anthony sounds like all my teachers right now. But yeah, sponsors.
I have the Rays winning in 7. I think that I want the Rays, and I think the Rays will. I just like their bats a lot and the defense that they have later in the series because the Dodgers have depth in their bullpen. It'll be interesting to see how the Rays do that, and I think how the Rays ended against the Yankees, how they're going to have a lot of pitchers in game 6 and 7 throwing 2 innings, trying to keep the batters uncomfortable and off balance. And I really like that idea and how the manager runs that. So I have the Rays in 7.
All right. So we're almost a house divided. I think if the fourth member Tennyson were here, his pick would probably be something one of us just said, considering he doesn't know all too much about baseball. But we'll say that he said he's going to pick the Rays just to keep it 2-2. So we're going to toss hands and determine who the real winner is, and that's how the World Series will be decided this year, folks. So let's take a
YouTube
moment
video on it.
and acknowledge the Sports King board. So, as you can see, at the top, World Series Game 1 on Tuesday, Dodgers versus Rays, as we know. And then, of course, the plug-in in the corner. Follow us on Twitter at sports__kingdom. And then follow us on Instagram at sportsking.dom. And then follow us on YouTube, sports_king_dom. Thank you. And then we'll look at the rest of the schedule for this week while we're at it. Tomorrow we got 2 Monday night games. We're going to see the Cardinals play the Bills, and then in the first game, and then in the second game we're going to see the Cowboys play the Cardinals.
No, Cowboys,
Bills versus
Cardinals,
Chiefs.
Bills versus Chiefs.
Yep. Kind of said Cardinals instead of Chiefs, but
It's okay. It's one mistake.
we got it.
All right, guys, I'm resigning from the website. You guys take over.
All right.
All right. So Dan, tell us about the games on Monday.
Okay. No, I think we're gonna discuss the games a little bit later, because first we'll talk about the games that happened on Sunday.
Well, we could have started with those games, but it's okay. We can talk about the Sunday games if you want to.
Yeah. Let's
Sunday
do
football.
that.
Let's start with probably the best game of the day. The Titans played the Texans in an AFC South clash. And if I recall, the Titans started out with a decent lead, and then the Texans crawled their way back, made it a game, and then they took the lead. And then the Titans got a last-second touchdown, courtesy of A.J. Brown, I believe it was. And then overtime came, and Derrick Henry had he got a reception and went for 50-something yards. And then they scored a touchdown off of a Derrick Henry run, I believe it was. So, Dan, give us your thoughts on that game real quick.
Yeah, I mean, definitely kind of a thriller of a game. Ended 42-36, I believe. And yeah, I mean, a division game, they're always close, regardless of the quality in teams, even though the Titans are undefeated and the Texans haven't been too great. But I mean, ever since good old Bill O'Brien was fired, the Texans have seemed to have been able to move the ball a bit. I mean, in a loss, they scored 36 points, which, I mean, if I were on offense and I scored 36 instead of a loss, I'd be pretty mad. But I mean, yeah, I mean, this day belonged to King Henry. I think he had something like 220 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. I
Yep.
mean, he
2
was
catches
just
for 50-something yards out of the out of the backfield.
Yeah, I mean, he was just fantastic on the day. I mean, he's been solid so far, but like this is by far his best performance of the season. I mean, uh, it's just, I mean, on Tuesday, stiff arms Josh Norman into Armageddon, and then now he's doing all this. So he's heating up. AJ Brown also had a good day. He caught 2 touchdowns. And the Titans' backup tight end Fisker came in because Jonnu Smith picked up an injury. I think he had like 8 receptions, 110 yards, and a touchdown. So Titans are rolling. I mean, it was good to see the Deshaun Watson playing well. But yeah, in terms of this 1 o'clock game on Sunday, the Titans still undefeated.
Yeah, and you make a good point about Derrick Henry, this being his best game of the year so far. He always seems to pick it up towards the second half of the year.
Most definitely.
Like, he'll start out the year, maybe he'll have a nice 75-yard game and a touchdown, but then like November rolls around, December rolls around, he starts going 150 plus yards every game, 2 touchdowns, and he's just going full beast mode. I feel like he started earlier this year.
Yeah.
Whenever
definitely.
I think it's just like, he does well in the cold, I suppose. I don't know how cold it was today in Tennessee, but something was in, he had Mike's secret stuff before the game started, and he started going. So I think the Titans are a legit team this year, and if they want to continue being a legit team, then Derrick Henry, if he keeps putting up games like that, I would expect them to see in the AFC title game again.
I agree, definitely, especially because before, say, last year, the Titans were a run team. They still are, but Derrick Henry, they always like focused on him and made sure they relied on him. That's the best word for it. Now this year, they are relying on him, but Tannehill is throwing the ball amazing. He's been doing good each week with 2 touchdowns. And so if they can't stop the run and they can't stop the pass, they're just going to score these 42-point games each. But if they stop one, they have the other working for them. So Titans are definitely looking complete this year.
Titans most definitely are looking like a complete team this year. Their defense is great, and their offense has been playing very good. Their defense was a bit shaky today, I'll say, but for the most part of the season, they've been pretty good. Let's go to another game. Another pretty interesting game. I didn't expect this to be as close as it was. Colts-Bengals finished 31-27. The Colts won the game. I believe the Bengals were up at one point. They were up 21-0, around that range. And they came all the way back, and the Colts ended up winning the game because the Bengals only got 3 points after halftime. So, and Joe Burrow threw an interception on the last drive of the game, which sealed the deal. But I think if you're a Bengals fan, I think watching this team is good. It's good to see, especially after the season they had last year. I think you should be happy to see how Joe Burrow's been playing. And, the rest of the offense too. Joe Mixon, he left with an injury, but he's been doing pretty good. T. Higgins has been playing incredible. 6 receptions for 125 yards today. A great game. The offense is pretty good on that team. I think if, they can fix the defense, which they probably will continue to do through this offseason with draft and other signings. I'm not going to say they're going to be, Super Bowl contenders within 3 years, but they're going to be, a good team. They're going to be, kicking for a while, especially if Joe Burrow continues to play at this high of a level.
Yeah, and that's how you can be optimistic about the Bengals, which hasn't really happened in a while. It's just because you have a bunch of these young players and you can see the offense starting to form well. You just need to fill in some, they still need to fill in parts in the offensive line, I would say, and then just start to fix with the defense. But they can pick in the top 10 next year, and it's not like they had a bad season. You just need to see positive signs because they're not going for this division now. They want this division when Ben Roethlisberger's gone, and maybe the Cleveland project falls apart. I mean, he'll still be dueling with Lamar Jackson, but it's just I think it's good from the Bengals perspective, and I guess if you're a Colts fan, I mean, obviously your defense has played well. They didn't play too well today, But I mean, Phillip Rivers finally had a good game. I mean, he had 371
370 yards
yards,
and
3
3 touchdowns.
touchdowns.
Yep.
Did have an interception, but I mean, finally, I mean, it sucked for them losing Andrew Luck. He's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league, without a doubt. And Brissett just wasn't working out. Jacob Eason, the rookie quarterback they drafted at Washington, I think it was in the 4th round. They haven't given him a shot yet, which I'm kind of surprised. But I guess since they were winning games, they didn't really look at it that way. So Colts, I guess it's good that Phillip Rivers played well, but I wouldn't bet on that too much.
Yeah, I agree. It's an interesting situation with Phillip Rivers because he's only on a 1-year deal. So I don't feel like they're going to Super Bowl.
Now type
Yeah,
deal.
I don't feel like it's a Super Bowl or a bust team though. It's like
Mhm.
they sit at 4-2 right now. Obviously, they're still behind the Titans, who are currently undefeated at 5-0. But I don't think they'll be able to compete with the Titans in all honesty. And I don't know how they'll do in the rest of the AFC. You put them up against the Chiefs, they're probably going to lose that game.
The Bills or Ravens.
Put them up against the Bills or the Ravens. Probably not going to end well for them there either. I mean, maybe they could surprise some people and end up winning the division, possibly getting a wild card, especially again with the expanded playoffs in the NFL this year. They could end up getting that 3rd wild card spot or the 2nd wild card spot. But I like their defense a lot. Their defense is great. But I just don't see how Phillip Rivers could lead this team to a Super Bowl this year. And I don't think he re-signs with the team either after this year. I think, this will either be his last year or like something will convince him to maybe come back. But I don't know if there'll be another team out there that wants him after this year. Unless it'd be the Colts again.
Like the Jets or something like.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. It'd be very weird, but I think this is probably his last year. I mean, the guy's got how many kids? So 9, something like that. So he's got, his hands full at home. He's going to start his own football team with all his kids.
Really?
And
Yep.
maybe The Rock will be nice enough and he'll put them in the XFL.
Maybe.
All right. So Dan, you mentioned the Cleveland Project. And the Cleveland Project got hammered today by the Steel Curtain.
Reality check.
38-7. They got obliterated. The game was over at halftime pretty much. What's going on with the Browns? I feel like they're pretenders. I feel like the record is nice, but like they've got 2 embarrassing losses. One today to the Steelers, they lost 38-7, and then they got I think it was week 1, they got destroyed by the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, with Cleveland, I'm not gonna like give up on them just yet because their offense, especially with Nick Chubb, they can definitely run the ball. But my thing is, as it was clearly shown today, they're still at the very maximum the 3rd best team in their own division. I mean, Baker Mayfield had a terrible game. He threw a pick 6 to Minka Fitzpatrick, I think, in the 1st quarter of the game.
Yep.
And they were just not able to move the ball. Baker Mayfield was taken out. They said he re-aggravated a rib injury. And Case Keenum actually went in. So, yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh, Ben Roethlisberger didn't even really do that much. He only had 14 completions. They had 3 rushing touchdowns from 3 separate players. Chase Claypool being one of them. He put up, I mean, he still had, I think, 7 receptions for 84 yards.
He had 4 catches for 74 yards. As you mentioned, he had a rushing touchdown as well. James Conner also had a rushing touchdown.
Yeah,
he put up 100 yards.
I guess it's even though they scored 38. I mean, no one put up too big numbers. But it's still good to see Claypool contributing once again, especially when people like Juju Smith-Schuster have 2 receptions for 6 yards, which I don't know, maybe a bit concerning. I mean, he definitely has talent. I guess it's more concerning now for fantasy owners rather than Steelers fans because they're still winning.
Yeah, I don't think Ben Roethlisberger or Juju Smith-Schuster, for that fact, are worried about your fantasy team. I think they're more so worried about winning the games.
Mm-hmm. Especially after last year with Mason Rudolph and
Yeah. Yep.
the quarterback carousel that happened there after he picked up an injury.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, the Steelers defense led by Minka and TJ Watt just still looking very, very solid.
Yeah, it's nice to see, Big Ben able to come back, and he's having a pretty decent year so far. I'm not going to say he's putting up MVP numbers,
But
but
they're good enough.
they're good
That's the
enough.
thing.
They're winning. They're a winning team. They're undefeated, 5-0. I believe they're one of the last teams undefeated. I think we said there was three, Dan.
Yeah.
The
The
the Titans,
Steelers,
the Steelers, and the Seahawks
yeah,
all sit undefeated right
because
now.
another team lost today that I'm sure we're going to talk
Bro,
about.
we'll touch upon that very soon. Yes. Because I think, in the offseason or when he got hurt, people were like, I think the Steelers should just tank and they'll get Trevor Lawrence in the draft and then, they'll go right back to being a contender. But I think it's nice that, Roethlisberger was like, no, I'm not done. I'm going to come back and, I'm going to try and get us a Super Bowl. Because, I mean, the way they're playing right now, they're contenders in the AFC. I think along with the Titans, I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the AFC title game, especially if they continue to get monster numbers from Chase Claypool and if they can up the production for Juju and James Conner keeps putting up good numbers and he can stay healthy. This team I think is bound
That's
for.
big for them if he could stay healthy.
Yeah,
'Cause
James
he's
Conner
been
staying healthy is a
good.
very big part. I think if they get all of that, there's a very good chance we see this team playing on the first Sunday of February. Honestly,
Definitely. For the Steelers, like it's great to see Big Ben. You can't dislike him. He's a lovable dude, and he's a Steelers quarterback. He's that hard blue collar worker. He doesn't have how Tom Brady and Russell Wilson have those off season workout programs, getting themselves in shape. He doesn't have that. It's like he wakes up, goes to work, and he puts all of his effort in. And like all the receivers love him. He's doing great this year, and especially their defense with Minka, Fitzpatrick, secondary, Devin Bush at linebacker, TJ Watt up front. Like that's a scary three. That gives me the
I
chills.
mean, they
Just
had the
saying
best
it.
defense last year.
Exactly. So they just keep getting better, and the Steelers will be a good contender. I think when they make it to the playoffs, I think they'll give the Chiefs a run for their money, definitely. And then for the Cleveland project, with the Browns front office is just all over the place, and it's like messy. So, and Mayfield wasting that number one pick on him, I don't think was right. Baker was a
so
great
who
college
should they have
quarterback.
taken number one?
I just don't. I just I didn't think it was him. I think they didn't need him at number one. It's just not working. Like the Browns need for him to succeed, they need run first with Chubb and Hunt. They have two amazing backs. Run first and then play action next because they have Odell who can go up the field, same with Landry come across, and they have two tight ends with Njoku and Austin
He's hurt.
Hooper who are
Yeah,
great. But
Njoku's hurt right now.
right now, but when he comes back, even with Austin Hooper, they can do a one tight end, and they have him doing post outs to the sideline. I think that will be their best benefit. Just he's not consistent. I think if the Browns miss the playoffs this year, I think they have to look for a new quarterback.
Okay, Dan, and now
Um,
explain your
Yeah,
emotions
I'm
on
gonna
that.
have to really disagree. I mean, Baker, let's not forget, I mean, in his rookie season, he set the record for touchdown passes by a rookie in a single season. I think he threw 27.
And didn't he also break the record for interceptions?
Did he? I don't.
He had a good amount of interceptions his rookie year, I believe. I don't know if it was a record,
Yeah.
but I believe he had a good amount of.
I mean, on that
interceptions.
team, there was very little win, so I guess they were throwing the ball a lot. But I'm like, but in that draft, at that pick, I don't see anyone else that could take them there. And Baker has had games this year where he's played well when Chubb and Hunt were running the ball particularly well, especially now in Stefanski's offense. And Stefanski, I think, is a great coach for Baker Mayfield. I mean, he made Kirk Cousins a Pro Bowler last year. So I just think, especially when Chubb is back, Baker, I'm not, I can't, just say the Baker pick was a bad pick because I'm trying to think, would the at quarterback had to be the pick that year. I mean, obviously Josh Allen's playing really well, but would Josh Allen have been a better quarterback in their system than Baker? I mean, maybe you can make the argument with Sam Darnold, but I'm not, I guess when I was watching the draft, back in it was 2018, right? I was like, oh, they should take Saquon at 1 and then take
Well, obviously.
Baker at 4 or something. But um, I don't know. I still think, especially they got Chubb at 30 in that draft, I believe. So I'm not. I mean, Anthony, I know you're a Colin Coward guy, and I know he hates Baker Mayfield, but I think you're letting him cloud your judgment of Baker Mayfield a bit.
Yeah, real quick side note. 14 interceptions his rookie year, definitely not a record, but 21 last year compared to 22 touchdowns. So
Yeah, his
is
rookie
that an
season
alarming
was
number? 21 interceptions last year. He's thrown 2 so far this year in this is their 6th game.
mhm.
So I guess he's on a very good pace for that, I suppose. Is that number alarming at all?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and defend a player for throwing what you said, 21
21
interceptions.
last year, 14 his rookie year.
Yeah, but I think so. His rookie year was, I would still say, very good. And he did have a bit of a sophomore slump, but I just don't think Freddie Kitchens was the right person for the job in Cleveland. He was supposed to handle this. Oh, they got Odell Beckham Jr. and just all of this, and it just obviously didn't work out. And like I said, I think Kevin Stefanski was a great hire, and he's going to help Baker progress. This is only his 3rd year in the league. Like, Peyton Manning was very awful for the beginning seasons of his career. I'm
Yes,
not
as a
making that
matter of fact,
comparison.
I googled the rookie interception record,
It's Peyton
and it's
Manning.
held by Peyton Manning. Yes,
Hmm.
so
Yeah, so we got to remember that quarterbacks, more so than any other position, um, I feel like take longer to develop into. I mean, their play span is longer. Like, they can play older, as that's what I mean. It's like a running back where if you're a rookie or a second-year player, like, you have to contribute right away because your lifespan in the NFL is so much shorter. So, you know, I mean, obviously today they had a bad game. Baker was playing a little, um, roughed up, but I think this was just a game where they were outmatched by a much better team. So I think Baker will have, a good rest of the season, and I think he'll make you eat your words about saying that he was a bad pick. Not you, Dom, Anthony. But,
Anthony,
we'll have to see.
what do you think the Browns should do at quarterback then if the answer is not Baker Mayfield?
You know,
They can't
I
go
think
first pick because there's no shot the Jets are matching 4 wins, which the Browns already have. So
I
they're
know
not getting Lawrence.
I know they can get the first pick, but like I would say after this year, because let him get used to Kevin Stefanski. Right.
Stefanski. Yep.
Yeah. Because how you say Kirk Cousins, I kind of see like a similarity between them two. Like Kirk Cousins is a like how you see with the Vikings, or run first with Cook, play action, hit Thielen on a bomb, or Justin Jefferson. So I'll give him after this season. I'll give him one more year. If he's not, if the Browns aren't making it second, past the first round of the playoffs in 2 years, I think you have to pass on them. They got
That's fair. I'll give you that.
Garrett
But
Willis in the draft to help him out. They're protecting him, and the defense got
their
better.
line's still bad. Their line. They're good at run blocking, but it's still
It's a bit shaky.
Yeah. I still think they have the worst left tackle in the league. I think
But
Duncan
if like
Robinson. No,
say
that's
if
a basketball player. Greg Robinson.
say if like this year they have a later pick in the first round, like between the 17 to say 32 area, which I think they'll probably be around there. And North Dakota State quarterback Trey Lance is still there. I would pick him as a backup. I like Trey Lance. I think he's going to be good. Some mock drafts have him going like up higher, like within the top 15. But I just maybe give Baker after this season, give him one more year, and if he doesn't do good, like he has a good career in commercials because he's been doing a lot of
Well,
them.
if the season were to end today, the Browns would be entering the playoffs as the second wild card team and would be going up against the Baltimore Ravens. And we all saw how that went in week 1, and I don't imagine the result would be any different in the playoffs. So, to Anthony's point of, what did you say, 2 years and they're not past the first round of the playoffs within
Plus
the next 2
Baker,
years?
and Baker with these big teams like how the Steelers, like he just hasn't like those big teams, like he hasn't had that game to where, all right, now we have to worry when he's in the moment, he's not winning those games.
I mean, he has a few more of these games later this season, so I think, we need to see how they do then. I mean, if they get Nick Chubb out, not that Kareem Hunt can't do it. I mean, there's no way he should be a backup running back, but we all know why he's a backup running back. But I still have, a little bit of faith in this Browns team and, in Baker Mayfield. So I think, and to your statement about them maybe picking quarterback in the first round, they're in no position to do so. They still need, if they drafted a lineman again, I think it'd be a great pick because even though it'd be back-to-back years, they have many other positions to fill. They're not like, the Packers went 13-3 and they could take Jordan Love in the first round. They can't do that. You can't afford to do that when you're not one of the best teams yet.
All right, well, speaking of one of the best teams, let's move on. And one of the best teams fell from the ranks of the unbeaten today. They were 4-0. Green Bay Packers are now 4-1 after a 38-10 loss at the hands of Tom Brady and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Took a 10-0 lead in the first quarter, and then 2 interceptions on back-to-back drives, one being a pick six by Aaron Rodgers. And then it was just downhill from there for the Packers. This is their first game coming off a bye week last week. And Tom Brady, 17 completions, 166 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Ronald Jones, he had a really good game on the ground, 23 carries for 113 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Gronk finally got his first touchdown of the season. He finally had a really big game with 5 catches and 78 yards. So the Buccaneers offense, they struggled a bit against a good Chicago defense their last time out. But now it seems as if they're finding their feet on offense, and they're all really starting to click well together. So what went wrong for the Buccaneers this week? The Packers. What went wrong for the Packers? Did they just run into the Buccaneers at the wrong time? Was it the bye week affecting them? Did it ruin their momentum going 4-0 and then having a bye week and having to come back? What went wrong for the Packers? What led to this big loss?
I guess, there's definitely a bit of truth to what you were saying with there. 4-0, a lot of momentum, and then hitting that bye week, an early bye week, which I think teams do not really like because then they know they have the rest of the season just to play all in a row. And maybe Aaron Rodgers had a terrible game. Terrible game. And I think he might have just built it up in his head a little bit much. He's like, oh, I'm playing Tom Brady. This is like, this huge game. And I think after the game you said this was good for them as it kind of like a reality check, which could be true in some aspects, or it could just be him making up for an abysmal performance. Aaron Jones did not do well on the ground either. 10 rushes for 15 yards. He did get a touchdown, but I think we talked about it before. The Bucs defense is definitely very good. The Bucs just outclassed the Packers today, and that was simply that.
I think the Buccaneers, like they shown you like the Bears, they're struggling, and then they show you that like the Chargers, the first half they struggle, and then after the second half they explode. So this week against the Packers, they they exploded from the get-go. And with Tom Brady as a threat as a quarterback and Mike Evans and when Godwin will come back.
Godwin did come back, and
Oh, he
Mike
did?
Evans didn't. Or no, he
When-
did play. He only had one reception though.
When the offense is all together and they're going to be, you'll think there's a passing. And the thing the Bucs really wanted to do this year is get their running game going with signing Fournette and Ronald Jones, how you said 23 carries, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns. And he's been on fire the past couple of weeks. And he's been huge for him because if the passing game's not working, they're going to go to the running game. And he's been carrying that running game a lot. And Ronald Jones is, I think, one of the main reasons that the Bucs are winning because their running game is working. So when the defense has to focus more on the running game, Brady and the weapons come out firing. So then a complete defense is going to have to stop both weapons with the running and the passing.
Yeah, not only did the Packers ruin their perfect record on the season, they also ruined my parlay. So I'm upset about that.
Don't gamble.
I'm not going to say that. But besides that game, we discussed on the last edition of the podcast 3 teams who had yet gotten wins. The Giants, the Falcons, and the Jets were all in action on Sunday. And 2 of those 3 teams got wins. The Giants beat the Washington football team 20-19 after the Washington football team missed a 2-point conversion at the end of the game. Riverboat Ron really wanted the win, but I think he also really wanted the loss. So that's why he went for 2. And the Falcons, they put up a very good showing against the Vikings, winning the game 40-23. I think a lot of the 23 that the Vikings had was garbage time. So a very good win for the Falcons. And then the Jets, they fall to 0-6 after getting shut out by the Dolphins. Tua popped into the game for very little. I think, Anthony, you told me before the podcast the stats were 2 for 2, 9 yards.
Yeah.
It was mostly, he just came in because it was garbage time.
And
Didn't want to risk it. He ran the ball. So, but it's good to see him. That was his first, actual action since he was hurt at Alabama, I believe. Or, he probably came back at some point. But it's good to see him come back and good to see him play. And I do genuinely think he's probably the future of the Dolphins organization.
Definitely.
So it'll be, I think Fitzpatrick's having a great year so far, and I think they'll continue to stick with him unless, knock on wood, he gets hurt. But I think Tua's gonna have a bright future with the Dolphins. And that should be a fun team to watch in the upcoming years. I like the team they have now. I think in a couple of years that team is going to be pretty good, especially if they keep doing well in the draft. And most of these pieces that they have now are also pretty good. So if they continue to develop them, then that would make for a fun team to watch. On Sunday night, the 49ers bounced back in a big way after their loss to the Dolphins last week. They beat the Rams 24-16. They'll go to 3-3. Rams dropped to 4-2. And Jimmy Garoppolo, after getting benched last week, has a really good game. Makes me eat my words from the last podcast where I said they should get rid of him and get Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan had a good game today, granted. But Jimmy Garoppolo, 23 completions, over 250 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He had a good game. Yeah, he found Kittle a lot, which he always does. Kittle had over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown again. Raheem Mostert did leave the game with an injury. That kind of messed up my fantasy team a little bit, but that's besides the point. But yeah, the 49ers bounced back in a good way after getting, we all saw they got destroyed last week by the Dolphins. So they'll go to 3-3, and every game in that NFC West very important, considering they both now trail the Seahawks, who are 5-0, who had a bye week this week. And how do you guys see that division playing out?
It's very interesting. I still see, especially after the start and the level that Russell Wilson's playing right now, I do see the Seahawks winning the division. But that race for second, I feel like whoever finishes second will probably get a wild card, because I don't see them coming out of the NFC East. Perhaps someone from the NFC South, and then I guess the Bears would probably make it as well. But someone from this division definitely could make it into the playoffs. And I don't know. It's really tricky to think about because like the Niners beat the Rams this week, but then like the teams, the Rams get smoked by the Dolphins. They also lose to the Eagles. The Rams beat the Eagles. So um, at the end of the day, I think the Rams will actually beat them out to second place in the division. I feel like they're maybe when they play again. I mean, Aaron Donald could have a monster game like always. So yeah, even though the Niners won here today, I do think that the Rams will beat them to second in the division.
I like as last week I said, Jimmy Garoppolo just had a bad week. It was first time back on the field. This week he looked good, and I think the Seahawks will definitely win the division, I think. And then for second place, I would have to go with the Niners just because I think they're a better overall team than the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are better than the Rams, and
Really,
yeah, I like Kyler, I like Hopkins. I like that.
Chandler Jones out for the year, I believe.
I like that team. I would have them go in the third and honestly possibly make the playoffs as like that extra because it expanded now with the new rules, so make that last spot. But uh, Seahawks, just Russell Wilson MVP year, and even the defense is a lot better than projected because they lost Clowney and everyone was worried about the defense. But Jamal Adams is making tackles, getting sacks as a safety. He's coming all the way back to the front of the line just to get the sacks, and he's making tackles. So I have the Seahawks winning the NFC West.
I like those picks, and I agree with both of them. I think the Seahawks. I'm not gonna say they've run away with the division because I think it's gonna be close. I think it's gonna. It's not. I don't think it's gonna go down to the last week, but it's gonna be close all the way through. So I would say the Seahawks are gonna win the division, and then I'm gonna go with you, Dan. I think the Rams are gonna get second in that division, and then I think the Cardinals are gonna end up getting last, but I think they're gonna have a good record. I think you could see them getting like 9-7, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, honestly, everyone in that division could have a positive, like
Yeah.
500 or above record.
I think there should be a mass petition to go around to just put that division in over whoever wins the NFC East. In all
Yeah.
honesty,
Hmm.
because that division is just loaded from top to bottom, and the Cardinals are only going to get better. Honestly, they're just starting out. So let's continue with the theme of the NFC West. The Cardinals play the Cowboys tomorrow on Monday Night Football. It's the second game. It kicks off at 8:15. How do you guys see that game playing out? The Cowboys now without Dak Prescott, obviously Andy Dalton will get the start. The game is in Dallas or Arlington, AT&T Stadium. Arizona is favored by 1 point. How do you guys see this game going?
Um, I don't like, as you said, the big headline of this game is Dak being out and Andy Dalton being in. And Cardinals are shaky from time to time, but obviously their offense is super high powered. The link up between Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins has already been fantastic. Like that trade is just paying
Very, very
dividends.
quickly becoming one of the best quarterback wide receiver duos in the league.
Yeah. So honestly, I think, they're favored even though it's only by one, and there's reason for that. But I don't know. I got a feeling that tomorrow night, this game is going to be decided by a huge game from Ezekiel Elliott. I think he's going to run all over the Cardinals defense, and I think that will ultimately decide the game, and I think the Cowboys are going to win.
For that game, I think it's gonna be a close game. Like I have the Cardinals and winning, but just by 1 to 2, 3 points, maybe a field goal. I think like everyone knows Dak is hurt, and Like we pray for him to get better, and surgery did go good, but like the backup's Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton has had good seasons. He was a starter for the Bengals for a while. It's not like you're putting in just some Joe Schmo. So Andy Dalton is experienced one, and he he's not bad. He's not as mobile as Prescott will be. So then they're going to rely on the run a lot more. But then for those deep balls that Prescott does, I think they'll still be there for Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb. So I think the Cowboys are still going to be a good contender. Like that division there is terrible, the NFC East, but I think Andy Dalton, the Cowboys would be in good hands with him.
Yeah, I agree. I think Andy Dalton, obviously he hasn't been the best quarterback these past couple of years, but he's a good quarterback. I think the Cowboys will be fine with him. They should, I think, again, easily win the NFC East the way it's panning out this year. But I think the Cardinals are going to, I think you're going to take this game. It's probably going to be close, I'd imagine. But I think that that Cowboys defense is going to have a rough time stopping Kyler Murray and the way he runs the ball.
That's fair.
And even now the way he throws the ball, because, his throwing has definitely gotten better. And it's very obvious. And now that he's got a weapon like DeAndre Hopkins to just throw the ball up to. I mean, you saw the game against the Jets they had last week where, he just bombed one up and got it to like midfield pretty much and then bombed it up again, got a touchdown. I feel like they won't be able to do that as easily against the Cowboys, but I think there'll be some degree of success with Kyler Murray being able to throw the ball. And again, with them being able to run the ball and how mobile he is, it's insane. So I think the Cardinals win this game. I'm not going to say they're going to win it by 15, 20 points. I think it'll probably be decided on maybe like a last second field goal or they get a touchdown within the last minute. But I would say the Cardinals are going to win this game. They'll go to 4-2 and enter third place in the NFC West. Let's check it. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, really quick. He has to work a little bit with his turnovers. He's already has 7 turnovers heading into the 6th week. So that could be something that may, decide the game.
Yep. A lot of young quarterbacks out there that need to figure out how to keep the ball, not turn it over as much, whether it's fumbles, interceptions. So I'm looking at you, Carson Wentz. Even though you had no picks today. It's first game of the season with no picks. All right, let's check out the other Monday night game. Starts at 5 o'clock. Chiefs-Bills. Dan, you highlighted this game on the last podcast. Chiefs are favored by 5.5. The game is in Orchard Park. Bills Mafia. They'll be tailgating. I already know it. What do you expect out of this first game of the Monday night doubleheader?
I expect a good one. I mean, kind of like I said on the list, when these two teams are both coming off, pretty big losses. And I mean, even though the dividend for the Bills was a lot higher than for the Chiefs, but I mean, they're both going to be looking to bounce back, and I think it's really important that they bounce back to kind of resolidate their power in the AFC, especially after big wins by the Titans and the Steelers, as we talked about earlier. So in this game, I do see the Chiefs pulling it out. I just think, I think it'll be close, but perhaps when it comes down to it in the fourth quarter, if each of the quarterbacks have a drive, I'm still easily taking Patrick Mahomes on that drive. There's the Chiefs players are all they're also healthy, so it's not like they're or at least the main weapons, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, CEH. So they're not missing anyone big. So I see them taking this one out in a shootout in Buffalo.
Anthony, what do you got for us?
I think this game's gonna be a shootout, just like Dan said. This game's gonna be fun to watch. I have the Bills. I'm picking the Bills for this game. Just because
to win or for the line?
To win.
Okay.
To win. I like the Bills. Their defense, is very good. Same with the Chiefs, but the Bills have a better defense. I like Josh Allen. I think he's doing phenomenal. The Chiefs, I think the Chiefs that lost to the Raiders last week is kind of hit them hard. You know, Mahomes is gonna come back firing. He's gonna have that, you know, I just lost to the Raiders. I'm not letting that happen again. So he's gonna come all out for Monday night. But I like the Bills. I'm gonna take the Bills to win this game.
Yeah, I agree. I like both of your takes. I think the game is probably going to be a shootout. I was really surprised watching the Bills against Tennessee, and they just kind of like crumbled and really didn't show up on
Couldn't run the
offense,
ball at all.
and their defense definitely didn't show up at all. I don't imagine that's going to happen again in this game against the Chiefs. I think I agree with the shootout aspect. I think it's going to be high scoring, probably both teams in the 30s, maybe even 40s, and it's going to be a fun game to watch regardless of who wins and who puts up what stats. But I think I'm going to agree with Dan. I'm going to say the Chiefs win this game. It's going to be a good bounce back effort, again, like Anthony said, from that loss against the Raiders. But I think that the Chiefs handle this game, and they show everyone that they're still around too. I feel like there's a lot of talk about the Steelers and the Titans and other teams in the AFC that are doing good. And the Chiefs are going to be like, hey, we're still here too.
We won the Super Bowl.
Don't forget about us.
Mhm.
And now they bring in Le'Veon Bell, which we'll hop into in a little bit. And he's not going to be active tomorrow because of the NFL COVID rules regarding signing free agents. I believe he signed with them on Thursday, and there needs to be like a 5-day period before he can actually join the team. And then he's got to go through the COVID testing and everything else. So he won't be active. Yeah, he won't be active tomorrow. He'll more than likely be active next week in week 7. And yeah, you guys got anything else to say about NFL Sunday week 6?
Well, no, but I wanted to ask you, Dom, what do you think? On our last podcast, we all talked about Le'Veon Bell and that he would be the perfect fit for the Chiefs. What's your take? How do you think the Chiefs and Andy Reid are going to use him?
All right, well, let's hop right into this then. Anthony brings up that question. That question was actually asked on our Instagram story. We put up a little thing on Sunday regarding if you had any questions sports related, drop them on the Instagram story, and we're going to answer them on the podcast. So we had a few questions come in, and that was one of them. What, if any, kind of impact is Le'Veon Bell going to have for the Chiefs? So I'll answer that question first because Anthony just asked it to me, and then I'll pass it off to you guys. I think Le'Veon Bell is going to have a pretty decent role in the Chiefs. I think because I don't really think that Edwards-Helaire was going to have a big role, but then Williams opted out of the season. And then they were like, okay, now we can lead on you. I feel like they were going to be more by committee, like they kind of were last year. And now I think they can go back to that option. And, Le'Veon Bell can be a good power back for them as well. I feel like, on those 3rd and 2s and, like, those 3rd and goals on the 1-yard line, those close situations, they can hand the ball off to him and he can punch it in. And he's an overall good running back. I think he still has what it takes to be a good running back in the NFL. I think, we didn't see that with the Jets, obviously, because we discussed it on the last podcast. Like, he didn't have a good O-line there at all. And then Adam
Always
Gase.
playing from behind.
Always playing from behind.
Yeah.
Adam Gase is the worst head coach to ever coach in the NFL.
Besides Hugh Jackson.
That's Hugh Jackson slander. We don't appreciate that here. I'm kidding. Jesus.
Oh, okay. Sorry for a second.
So I think Le'Veon Bell is going to have a big enough role with the Chiefs, and he's going to play a big part in them, making another Super Bowl run this season, I believe.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, it's definitely, I don't know, at least to me, it may be a bit concerning that he's going to take away some touches from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I mean, they used a 1st-round pick on him, albeit it was the 32nd pick. But I guess in a way, it's just a 1-year deal, right? Or like the rest of the season.
Yeah, just the rest of the season.
So yeah, I guess in a way, he can help them in the now and perhaps give a few tips to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, especially like you said, like with these power back situations. Like it's not even that he's like Derrick Henry and can run into them. It's just he's so patient behind the line of scrimmage, and he allows the holes to form and then hits it, which sometimes can be like hit or miss. But with the Steelers, as we saw, I mean, he was a top 3 back in the league easily, no question about it. and the Chiefs most definitely have a better offensive line than the Jets. So, I think it's a very low risk, high reward signing for the Chiefs, and another great piece of business by Andy Reid.
Yeah, I agree with the low risk, high reward. Le'Veon Bell, he's now going to be in a winning environment, and with Hilaire and Bell, I think, like, I know Hilaire, like how you said, is going to lose touches, but I think you can have them both on the field at the same time because the Chiefs, they're never like I formation, fullback, we're going to shove it right down. They are sometimes, but they're passing. They have Hardman, Watkins Hill, these quick guys that are out in the slot or on the sideline, ready to go up the field. And Hilaire is a good receiving back. Bell, can receive. So I think that if they could fool teams with having them two out on the field, because you have, say, a shotgun with two of them in the back, you do a little option or RPO that you can try to trick the team. I think it's going to be a great fit for Le'Veon Bell, and the Chiefs are getting a high reward on this part.
All right, very well. Let's bounce to the next question we got from the Instagram story. We're without our basketball guy tonight, but we'll ask the question anyway. Will there be any big NBA trades happening this offseason?
Yes. All right. So the Timberwolves are looking to trade the number 1 pick. They still might draft it, but they want a win now player. And this year in the first round, they have the first number 1 and 17th overall pick. So trading that number 1 overall pick for a win now player is fine, because the 17th pick, they can get a very good player, and that could be that person that they develop that will go through their system and everything. So I know you said possible trades for Timberwolves. I think a good target would be Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is, a lot of teams are going to try to get him. The Lakers will. I know that LeBron loves him. Within the past 3 years, each year his field goal percentage has gone up. So he's making more shots, and he is the most underrated player in the NBA. To me, that's what I think. So I think Bradley Beal will be a good target, especially with Karl-Anthony Towns down low and D'Angelo also bringing the ball up. He'll kick out to him, get a nice 3 in, and they have they can trade the number 1 pick. They have 2 young assets, Josh Okogie and Jarrett Culver, plus veteran James Johnson, who teams have been interested in for a veteran presence. So that could be one thing. And then the New York Knicks, they weren't happy they got the 8th pick. They had that luck in the draft to where they didn't get in the number 1 pick or the top 3. So they are a team that is going to surprise people with trades. They have 7 first-round draft picks within the next 4 drafts, which is just crazy. And they're looking for Chris Paul, trying to get him, and possibly have Carmelo Anthony reunite in New York at Madison Square Garden. So the Knicks, watch out for the Knicks. And then another trade that I think could work with that I saw is how the Celtics are trying to get rid of Gordon Hayward. So the Timberwolves will trade the Celtics for the first overall pick. Timberwolves will receive Gordon Hayward and a couple a first rounder next year, and their second first round pick this year that they have, I think it's 22nd, around there. And then the Knicks receive James Johnson, the 14th overall pick, Jake Layman and Vincent Poirier. I saw could be a possibility. And then for us Philadelphia fans, because we're from Philly, that the Sixers could trade Al Horford, 2 second rounders for help me out, Dom. Thank you. For Buddy Hield, which we all know we need that shooter, and get Jabari Parker also in the deal. So there are some trades that could happen. I saw the Pistons are kind of like trying to get rid of that 7th pick, get someone big in. They possibly could be trading Luke Kennard, who's another great shooter. With that 7th pick, Oladipo is, I think, on the move. He wants to be on the move. He wants to be in a winning environment. Watch the Lakers try to trade Kuzma or get him, or even the Heat try to get Oladipo down there in Miami. And then the last thing for the NBA trades, the Hornets. The Hornets are looking for that big man, possibly in the draft with the number 3 pick, but a potential player that they could get is Blake Griffin. If they trade for Blake Griffin, they give like Malik Monk, Nicholas Batum, and a future first rounder and a second rounder, that they will take care of Blake Griffin. They'll take care of their big man problem, veteran presence, and he'll be good with the young core they have. And possibly, there's been rumors that the Hornets are like LaMelo Ball. So I know they have Rozier and Monk, or Graham, but LaMelo Ball, they could have him as move Rozier down to a 6-man, kind of like how he was at his beginning of Boston when he was with the Celtics. So, just there will be a lot of moves. Just watch out for the Knicks. They're going to surprise some people. Thank you for asking that question too.
Of course. Dan, we got any big blockbuster trades that could be happening this offseason?
I mean, he covered a lot of them pretty extensively. I guess, like you said, as a Philly fan, a big trade I hope doesn't happen is anything involving Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid. I know there's a lot of cases to be made. Of course, there was a bit of the James Harden rumors because, just because with Ben Simmons. And I could see a case for why perhaps it would work for both teams, but I don't know. I really don't think the Sixers should do it. Especially just don't trade Joel Embiid even more importantly. I know he's, a polarizing player. Some like him, some don't. There's questions about his effort sometimes, but I mean, on his day, which he does have a lot, he is, I mean, probably, at least in my opinion, the best classic center that we still have in the league. Obviously, Jokic is this weird sort of point guard one, but just giving it to Joel on the block, he's gonna get you 2 points, maybe even 3 if it's an and one. But so yeah, that's what I have to add to that. So just big trades I'm hoping don't happen.
I think to that point, I don't think we'll be seeing any big trades like Anthony Davis. We won't be seeing a trade like that this offseason. Like we had the Anthony Davis trade last year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'll be having anything to that caliber this year. I think I like what Anthony said with Bradley Beal getting traded. I think he does get shipped out of there. I think maybe John Wall gets shipped out of there too, but I don't know who's going to take his contract, if anyone does, and especially because he didn't play at all this year. So
He hasn't played in a long
yeah,
Hasn't played in like 2 years.
It's been a while since he played, so I don't know who's going to take him on. I think another guy who could move, potentially CJ McCollum. I don't know what the Trailblazers are trying to do exactly, but it's not like they're getting any younger. They're a good team, and they could make a good playoff run this year. But I think if they're maybe not in the offseason, but if they're a bad team at the trade deadline, I wouldn't be surprised to see him trade CJ McCollum. I don't think they'll trade Damian Lillard. They shouldn't trade Damian Lillard.
No, he's their franchise.
Yeah, but I think CJ McCollum could, I'm not going to say it'll happen within the next month or before the next season starts, but it could happen within, this offseason or before the trade deadline. I'm not sure what his contract is like, and maybe it could happen next offseason as well. But I think, Anthony covered majority of the trades that could possibly happen. Buddy Hield to the Sixers maybe.
That's more plausible.
Yeah, and then, he said draft picks being shipped around everywhere. So I don't imagine, not too many big names will be traded. Like Dan, you said Simmons and Embiid. I don't imagine any of them get traded. I don't think James Harden will get traded. Yeah, I'm not too well rounded on basketball players and their current situations on their teams. So I think, Tennyson would have a nice input on it. But I think, Anthony covered majority of what I think could happen. If I were to say someone would get traded, I think it'd be Bradley Beal, because his name has been floating around in trade rumors for a while now. So I think if someone, he'd probably be the biggest name to get traded this offseason. And I think that's all that would happen. I think, there'll probably be like some small names being traded. But, we're not going to see another Anthony Davis trade this offseason like we had last offseason, I think.
Yep.
All right. So the last question we had, and I'll use this to segue into our next topic as well. If Khabib Nurmagomedov retains the lightweight title at UFC 254 this upcoming Saturday, October 24th, and Conor McGregor defeats Dustin Poirier in their scheduled bout that is currently scheduled for January 23rd, do we see a Conor versus Khabib 2? Dan, I'll open this question to you, if you have any opinion on it.
I would have to say yes. I mean, I mean, if Khabib beats Gaethje, I mean, he's still on top of the division, and then, if Conor gets back into it and he beats Poirier, maybe some would question if Conor is, the best opponent, to face Khabib next, or if he deserves it. But there's one thing you certainly cannot deny about the possibility of a rematch, is that it would get so many views. Like the amount of money the UFC would get, I feel like, is too much for good old Dana White to pass up. So regardless of, I mean, firstly, Khabib has to win and Conor has to win. But, regardless of if you think Conor should be Khabib's next opponent, you just can't deny just the amount of hype, attention, and money that the UFC would get from a rematch. So that's what I have to say about that.
Really quickly, Anthony, do you have any opinions on this?
I think, I think Khabib, I don't think Khabib's going to fight Conor McGregor again. Just for some reason, I just think that, he's taking down that whole class. He already embarrassed McGregor. I know there's a whole incident after, jumped off the octagon into the crowd, which is pretty cool. I remember I was in Florida when that happened, in Fort Myers. That's something I'll probably never forget. But I don't know. I think, Khabib I think he's gonna wants to fight every single person. But I don't know. I think he's like a quiet person. I don't think he's gonna care about all the hype around it. So I honestly don't think that he's gonna fight McGregor again. If he does, it'll be really cool, and I'll definitely watch it.
All right, and now here's my take on it. So obviously, like Dan said, Khabib needs to defeat Justin Gaethje first, and Conor needs to beat Poirier before we can even talk about this being a possibility. But here's my take on it. The UFC just signed former Bellator champion Michael Chandler, who, as of right now, if something, again, knock on wood, goes wrong between Khabib or Gaethje this Saturday, he'll be the replacement. He'll be in Abu Dhabi. He'll be on Fight Island. He'll be ready to step in if someone needs to drop out. Hopefully no one does, but he'll be ready. And here's my take on that. First of all, I'm not even entirely sure if Conor will beat Poirier. I think, those guys fought. I think it was back in 2014 they fought for the first time. And Conor, knocked out Poirier within the first round. And Mystic Mac was born. It was a long time ago, and Dustin Poirier has been way more active than Conor has been. And I would say he's probably had some rougher fights than Conor's had since then. So I think if they're going to meet up at some point. The date's not set in stone yet, but it's looking like January 23rd. And I mean, I'm not going to doubt Conor. I'd say he definitely has a good chance to win that fight. But I also wouldn't deny Poirier the chance to win that fight, because I think he easily could. And then where I stand on that is, if Michael Chandler doesn't end up fighting this Saturday on that card, he doesn't have to fill in for anyone, I think his next fight needs to be against Tony Ferguson. I think if he goes up against Tony Ferguson, saying in November or maybe December, I think that's the number one contender fight. I think If Tony Ferguson wins that fight, he gets the title shot. If Michael Chandler wins that fight, he gets the title shot. And I think another factor that plays into it is that Khabib does not want to fight McGregor. He believes that McGregor, regardless of what he does not get another title shot. And honestly, at this point, I think McGregor's past getting another shot at Khabib. I think he wants to fight Poirier so he can fight a southpaw before he fights Manny Pacquiao. I think that's Conor. The whole reason, I swear, Conor took this fight just so he could be ready for Manny Pacquiao. And I think another thing is, I think Khabib wants, if he does win against Gaethje, then he'll be 29-0. One more win, the big 30-0. That's what he's chasing. He says he wants to get 30-0, and then he's going to retire.
Yeah.
And he's been making the point where he wants to fight GSP for that last fight, but I just don't want to see that fight happen.
I don't know.
I do not want to see that fight happen at all. Because A, it would be at 155, which is, not fun to see GSP go down to 155. And then B, it's like GSP came out of a 4-year retirement to fight Michael Bisping in 2017. It's been almost 3 years since that. So I don't think it'd be smart if he came out of retirement again to fight Khabib. And, Dan, you brought up the factor of how much it'll sell a second Conor Khabib fight.
So much.
It'll sell so much. It'll shatter records, No matter, Anthony said he got embarrassed the first fight McGregor did, which is entirely true. But no one's going to remember that first fight. Once Dana White posts that picture on his Instagram saying it's happening, everyone forgets that first fight happened and they look forward to the second fight. So I would say that if both fighters end up winning their respective fights, then yes, it's a possibility, but I don't want to see it. I personally don't want to see McGregor get destroyed again. I would much rather see him go fight Manny Pacquiao and get destroyed by him. But I don't want to see a Conor Khabib too. I think we will end up seeing it at some point, but I don't want to see it. I don't even know if it would happen within the next year, realistically. I think people are forgetting Khabib also lost his father just about a couple months ago, who was a big part in his martial arts career. He was there for majority of his fights, and then Khabib signed for the UFC, and he could never get over here. But then finally, last year, when Khabib fought Dustin Poirier, he was finally there to see his son fight in the UFC, and it was a good performance against Poirier last year. So I think Khabib is very close to the end of his career. I don't think this is his last fight. I think, like I said, if he wins this fight, then he's going to go for 30-0, and that'll be his last fight. And I don't think he wants his last fight to be against McGregor. I think he would rather fight Poirier a second time, or I think he would rather fight Ferguson or Michael Chandler if those two end up fighting. And then, I hope it's not GSP. That's all I can hope for. I would rather see him fight Conor for a second time than I'd rather see him fight GSP. Because that, for me, that's not a fun fight. No matter how nice it sounds, it's just
GSP
not enticing.
Should enjoy retirement.
He should. After all he did in his career, I think just let him be. So
probably the greatest.
I think, to me, he is the greatest. I think a lot of people make the case that John Jones is, and I think you can make the case for Anderson Silva, but to me, it's GSP. The man had 2 losses in his career, and he avenged them both. So, but that's another topic for a different day.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
So let's stick to the theme of UFC. Pretty decent card this past weekend on UFC Fight Island. Brian Ortega defeated the Korean Zombie in the main event that went the full 5 rounds in a fight that Ortega dominated in. So right before we hop into that, but the co-main event, Jessica Andrade, she moved up to flyweight 125, and she took on Caitlin Chokagian, former challenger of the belt. As I mentioned in the last podcast, Andrade is the former strawweight champion, moved up. She beats the number 1 contender rankings-wise in the flyweight division. So I guess my question, I'll ask Dan, do you think Andrade now deserves a title fight? I believe Shevchenko already has a title fight lined up for, I believe it's the end of November. She has a title shot lined up, but Shevchenko's very active. She wins that fight with ease, as she probably will. She'll fight again in January or February, realistically. So is Andrade the next in line? Does she need another fight at flyweight?
I actually do think Andrade probably would be the next in line. after Shevchenko's next fight. She was dominant in this fight. She got a first round knockout. And I think, like you said, Shevchenko's a very active fighter, so I think she'll definitely be up for the challenge. And I think it would be a pretty good fight between those two. I would definitely like to see it, and I think UFC fans would like to see it, so it won't be too hard for Dana to market. So yeah, I definitely think after Shevchenko's next fight, Andrade should be the next in line.
Yeah, I think the problem with that division is it's just so stuck in the mud, and like everyone who does come out of it just ends up crumbling to Shevchenko, and it's like you can't really find anyone to fight her anymore. I remember a few years back, I think this was at UFC 230, the card that ended up being Daniel Cormier versus Derek Lewis in the main event at Madison Square Garden. The original main event of that card was going to be Valentina Shevchenko versus Sajara Eubanks, who I believe at the time had a record of 3-2. And they were getting ready to put her up in the flyweight title main event at Madison Square Garden. So I think I agree. Andrade gets the next title shot after Shevchenko, does what she's got to do in November. Well, obviously first she's got to win the fight. I imagine she's going to win the fight. But besides Amanda Nunes, there's no one else to give her. And she's already fought Amanda Nunes twice. Granted, they were both at, Nunes' weight class. Nunes is not dropping down to 125. Not when she fights at 145 and 135 very consistently and defends both belts. So I think, it's got to be Andrade next, whether that fight's in January or February. Like Dan said, she put on a really good performance. She got the knockout, and she did it against a tough opponent, Katlyn Chookagian, too. As I mentioned, she had a title shot. I think it was earlier this year she had a title shot, and Shevchenko obviously made quick work of her as well. So I think it would make the most sense. Obviously you can't book that fight as like a main event, so something else has got to be behind it. But it's the smart fight to make. It's the right fight to make, honestly, because no one else is going to come out of that 125 division anytime soon. So I think Andrade, she picked her moment right. She noticed that Zhang Wei Li and Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and she just lost to Rose Namajunas back in July. That 115 women's division, it looks really good. There's a lot of killers in that division. So she got out of there, and she's like, let me take a crack at 125. Maybe I can do something there. And she picked the right time. She moved up as I mentioned, the number one ranked women's flyweight, rankings wise, obviously, but rankings don't matter in the UFC anymore, as we all know. She beats her up. It's title shot next, honestly.
It's a good win for her, regardless of
it's a
what you
great
said
win,
about
yeah.
rankings.
If she doesn't get the title shot, she does get the title. It's a good win. It's a good win to have. Co-main event of a pretty decent card, so it's good. It's a good win for her to get. And yeah, good luck against Shevchenko if that's the fight you get. And then the main event. We saw Brian Ortega return. It's been almost 2 years since we last saw him. His last fight was against Max Holloway in December 2018, which, he got beaten and battered in that fight. And he came into this fight, and it was the best Brian Ortega we have seen ever. He dominated every aspect of the fight, won all rounds, clean sweep on every single card, 50-45 across the board. And it was nothing but pure domination. So, again, I'll ask you, Dan, what do you expect out of Ortega next? Is he getting a title shot? Does he need another fight?
It's interesting to think about because obviously he goes on this 2-year hiatus, and then he comes back and he, like you said, puts in a really good performance against a good fighter in the Korean Zombie. For me though, I think I would probably say he should get one more fight in before a title fight. Because I feel like it would be a little reactionary to just say, "Oh, you won this fight, let's just give him a title fight next." Even though it is a good win, definitely a good win. So I don't know who his next opponent would be for a title fight, but I definitely think there should be one more in there. And then if he wins that fight, then there's no question that he should get a title fight. So
I agree with that. I think, he needs one more fight to prove himself. That like the Korean Zombie it's a good win, and he did dominate all 5 rounds. So I think he needs one more fight. Give him a little harder competition than the Korean Zombie. Not that the Korean Zombie's bad, very good fighter, but one more fight, and then if he wins that, he deserves that title shot.
Yeah, I agree completely with you guys. I think he does need one more fight because I think realistically he can't jump Zabit Magomedsharipov. He can't jump him. And then I think what they should do is honestly they should do him and Max Holloway for a second fight. And then winner of that can get winner of Volkanovski versus Zabit. Because I think that's the next featherweight title shot. I think that's the next featherweight title fight that should happen. There was rumors swirling around, I think back in June, July, that Zabit was going to fight Yair Rodriguez. But it's been way too long, and I don't think they should make that fight anymore. And Zabit has looked so dominant in all of his last fights that I think he should get a title. He should get a title fight. It gives and it also gives Max Holloway a good shot. You win this fight, you're right back in it too, because he lost.
he's
Granted,
very angry.
Yeah, granted, it was a shaky decision both times against Volkanovski. So if he can go in there and him and Ortega, winner gets a title shot. Zabit fights Volkanovski. I think he'd make everyone happy. I think Yair Rodriguez can wait his turn because he waited too long. I think he's been ducking Zabit for years now. So when they figure that out, it's a. I think Dana White said it. It's not a bad problem. It's a good problem to have all these guys and not know what to do with them. When, as like I mentioned earlier, look at the 125 women's division. It's like we just got a bunch of fighters who. They're kind of just there. It's like none of them are good enough to get a title shot, but none of them are bad enough to just say get off the UFC roster. So I think they've got a good problem at featherweight right now, and that's having a lot of good competitive fighters, in that division. And we talk about Brian Ortega and how impressive he looked. It was impressive enough to get my first ever performer of the weekend, which is something new we're gonna do on our weekend podcast. We're going to, talk about who our best performer of the weekend was and why. And for me, it was an easy decision to pick Brian because just how incredibly he looked. And not to mention something small. He shaved his hair off and everyone immediately jumped to the conclusion that it was because he struggled to make weight. When in reality, he donated all of his hair, his luscious locks, to charity for children with cancer in an absolutely amazing move. So Brian Ortega, what a guy, what a fighter, what a bright future he's got as well. He's probably the future of the UFC 145 division. So he's my performer of the weekend because of his amazing performance against the Korean Zombie on Saturday night. And I look for great things from this guy. Before he fought Max Holloway, he was on such a roll. And I think that roll is going to pick right back up, with this win. It's only going to get better for him, honestly. And yeah, Anthony, who was your performer of the weekend?
I'm going to baseball with Randy Arozarena. His batting average is .321 right now, and just in the 7-game series with the Astros, he had 4 home runs in the game, and 4 home runs out of 7 games. He had 6 RBIs, and his defense, he threw out Tuve out trying to stretch a single into a double, and his presence, just being there is huge. The baseball is looking like a beach ball right now because he's just smashing it. So he's so exciting to watch, and first year he's a young man, and stay on fire, keep doing what you're doing.
Okay, and now Dan, performer of the weekend.
My performer of the weekend, for me, it has to go to ZLATAN Ibrahimovic. Of course, like we mentioned on the last podcast, the Milan Derby happened this weekend, and AC beat Inter 2-1. Both goals coming from Zlatan, and then Romelu Lukaku also he got the goal for Inter, and he really just was the difference in this game. It was that simple. I mean, it was pretty. I mean, Inter had the slight edge in possession and shots, but just for his first goal, he won a penalty, and like he took the penalty, and Handanovic also saved it. He is one of like the highest save percentage on penalties in Europe over the past like 5 years. So good on him. But on the rebound, Zlatan got it and he tucked it in right away to give him a 1-0 lead. And then I think that was in the 13th minute, and I think the 16th minute, um, he just did a great job of getting off his marker Kolarov, who kind of had a bad game. He gave up the penalty, and then he lost Zlatan off Leao, who made a great run down the left-hand side and then crossed it in. I mean, he was just able to hold up play and just with this win, their hot streak continues. I mean, they since the restart of last year, or I mean it's still this year, but a less Serie A campaign, AC would have finished second, only behind Atalanta, who had the best second half last year. And now AC Milan, obviously we're only 4 games into the season, but they're perfect right now, 12 points. They also, I believe, 9 goals for and 1 goal against. So just the whole team is clicking right now, and it's all off the back of their 39 or 40-year-old striker in Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who comes back. This was his first game cleared since he got COVID. So, I mean, it's just an insane performance by him and a great day for AC Milan fans.
Yeah, you bring up that was his first game back since testing positive for COVID, and the man is 39 years old, and he is probably the best striker in Serie A right now, realistically.
Insane.
It is insane. The defenses he goes up against, he still puts up incredible numbers. He still manages to get goals, and he still manages to be a big factor in all these games. I think everyone looks at he went back on a free in January to Milan after his time with the Galaxy was up, and everyone looked at the move and was like, "Oh, nice retirement move for Zlatan. He'll play out the rest of the season. He'll call it quits, and congratulations on a great career, Zlatan." And Zlatan was like, "That's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen here is I'm going to show you how good I am and how high of a level I can still compete at." And that's exactly what he did. He finished, last season on an incredible run, and he's picking up right where he left off this season. And he talks about how he wanted to win. He wants to win the Serie A this year with Milan. He wants to get them at least to a Champions League spot this year. And they keep going at this pace. He's gonna do it. So, and especially the way the rest of the Serie A they're playing right now. Juve dropped points at Crotone. Atalanta dropped points against Napoli. The way it's going is they could very well win the Scudetto.
Right?
They could well win it.
Yep.
At this early in the season, there's no obviously, we look at the top guys. You look at Juve, you look at Inter, you look at Milan, you look at Napoli, and you just look at those guys and like, okay, the obvious contenders. But it's been a while since we've looked at Milan and been like, okay, they're contenders. They can win the Scudetto this year. And now it looks like a real possibility because the way it's not just him, it's the way he's got the rest of the team playing. And the way they are playing, if you watch that Derby game, they were playing incredible. It was the best way I've seen Milan play in years. They just looked fast, and all their crosses, they were going in, they were passing the ball well, and obviously Donnarumma plays a great game. Lets in 1 goal, but besides that, a great game. So, let's bounce into soccer too. I mean, the Derby was great, and then there were other incredible games throughout the weekend. We look at the Merseyside Derby, which was incredible in the Premier League, which a very controversial end. We look at, other Premier League games, Man City beat Arsenal 1-0. You look at La Liga, and Barcelona and Real Madrid both lose on the weekend. And, it was just a crazy week. Dan, what do you got for us in soccer?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely mentioned a few of them there. So the 2 big games like we previewed in the last podcast, the Milan Derby, which we just talked about, and then the Merseyside Derby ended in a 2-all draw. Very, very controversial. VAR disallowed a goal from Liverpool. Jordan Henderson scored in like the 93rd minute, but they called Sadio Mane offside. And if you look at like the still picture where they put up the line, he just wasn't offside. There's like no other way to put it. He just was not offside. And then Jordan Pickford just made a horrific tackle on Van Dijk, and then Van Dijk went out. And I mean, I still
they're now saying it's ACL damage. So
yeah.
very,
So I
very
mean,
scary for Liverpool in their defense.
yeah, if it's a tear, he's going to be out for a very extended period of time. If it's a sprain, you're going to see like 6 to 8 weeks, but it's still scary to see, you know, the best defender in the Premier League, I would still say, even though his performances have been a bit shaky. I mean, he was the guy, along with Mohamed Salah, that changed Liverpool from being just like a top 6 side to Champions League winners to Premier League winners. And I mean, you saw it last year with Laporte going down for City, how it didn't allow them to secure their 3rd title. I think the same could be happening for Liverpool, especially even though it seemed like such a minute sale, letting Dejan Lovren leave to Zenit St. Petersburg. Their only 2 center backs are Joel Matip and Joe Gomez, and then I think they probably have some young players in there, but they're very, very thin at center back right now. And the way that Joe Gomez has been playing, that scares me. I feel like they're gonna have to. I guess the good problem that Liverpool have here is that Fabinho can play at center back, and because they purchased Thiago over the summer, their midfield will still be okay. Because with Keita, Thiago, and Henderson, they should be able to, and Wijnaldum still, because he didn't go to Barcelona, they still should be able to hold the midfield. But I mean, this is a big loss for Liverpool, and it could really, really hurt their season. And Everton, I mean, James played a great game once again, but Everton are definitely lucky to be getting a point, I would say. And I guess just looking at some other games around the Premier League. So City beat Arsenal. Wasn't the most exciting game. City were a bit more conservative. They definitely played for the win, and they got the win. Also, I guess I'll touch maybe one more Premier League game. Or 2, sorry. So Spurs up 3-0 against West Ham, draw 3-3. I mean, they thrash United, and I mean thrash United last week 6-1, and then this happens. Jose Mourinho, I don't get him sometimes, really. He's supposed to be this like defensive guy conceding 3 goals unanswered. And then lastly in the Premier League, Aston Villa beat Leicester, and they remain perfect. Ross Barkley scored in like the 92nd or 93rd. It's just crazy. I mean, they were 1 point away from relegation last year, and here they are. They sit 2nd right now with a game in hand and are perfect right now. So yeah, those were the interesting games. I mean, like Dom, like you touched upon, both Madrid and Barcelona lose. It's just, Madrid lost to Cadiz, who were just promoted, and Barcelona to Getafe. I mean, this just the way that both clubs are right now. I mean, this is the year that Atletico should make their push for the league. Just get the trophy. And I know Simeone's always, focuses on Europe as well, but just the state of the other 2 clubs, just go for it. Just go all in. Get a title, because it's been, when was the last time they won it? 2013 or 2014. So just go for it. I mean, you have enough quality in your side. Especially like Real, I still think are in a worse state than Barcelona just because Barcelona have Messi. But it's really interesting to see what's going on in La Liga and Liga and the Bundesliga. There's still nothing too big happening. Dortmund beat Hoffenheim 1-0, so the race at the top of the Bundesliga is very close right now, all within 1 point. So yeah, that's what I have to say about the soccer on the weekend.
And Dan makes an interesting point about Real Madrid, and I'll leave a little teaser to his Champions League preview. He's got an interesting take on Real Madrid in the Champions League group stage. I won't spoil it now. It drops on Tuesday on the website. Make sure you go check it out. Dan,
Hot take.
Let's look at some fixtures. The first round of the group stage in the Champions League kicks off on Tuesday. We're going to see some pretty decent games to start off the first week. We've got PSG is going to take on Man United in first day of the group stage play.
Yeah, I mean, gonna be interesting because, PSG are still PSG. They still have Mbappe. They still have Neymar. They looked better as of late. They're very shaky at the beginning of the season. I think they lost to Lens and then Marseille in that controversial fashion, but they picked it up. And United, I guess today, or was it today, or it might have been on Saturday. It looked like they were going to draw with Newcastle, but then just about the last 15 minutes, they just went on a tangent. They scored 3 goals, so they ended up winning 4-1. And having Van de Beek on the field along with Bruno kind of, I think, boded really well for them because Van de Beek can play he's not like a deep field playmaker, but he can play a little bit deeper and transition to Bruno, who then can go to like Rashford or Martial or Greenwood on the counter, because that's the only way they can win on the counter attack. I mean, it'll be an interesting game, definitely. I see PSG probably winning this. I don't see a draw. I don't know how you guys feel, but that's how I feel about this fixture.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that take. I think the PSG win this game. I mean, you go up against Neymar and Mbappe and all the striking options that they have at PSG, and probably especially with United's defense, how shaky it's been. So I would take PSG.
If you want to laugh, take a look at Patrice Evra's tweet regarding Harry Maguire, and you'll get a pretty good laugh out of it.
I know how funny Patrice is, so I'll take your word for it. Other big name clubs: Juventus plays Dynamo Kiev. They play Tuesday at 12:55 Eastern Time p.m. Barcelona. Dan, you're gonna have to help me out with his name. Ferencváros. Am I saying that right?
You have
butchering
about
it?
as good of a guess as I do on that one.
Good enough. Barcelona plays them at 3:00 on Tuesday. Chelsea plays Sevilla at 3:00 on Tuesday as well. Lazio and Borussia Dortmund, they play at 3:00 on Wednesday. Also, Juventus still without Cristiano Ronaldo. Tested positive for COVID, wishing him well. Along with Weston McKennie, both testing positive. I believe they'll both be back in time for their clash against Barcelona, which takes place, I believe, next Wednesday, the 28th. Some other games that take place on Wednesday this week. Ajax plays Liverpool at 3:00 on Wednesday. Bayern Munich, they play Atletico Madrid at 3:00 on Wednesday. And Manchester City play Porto at 3:00 on Wednesday. So some interesting games to bring back the Champions League with. They all should be fun to watch. So, and we'll keep posted with all the scores and updates and winners and losers. Just make sure you follow us, and you'll see the news. I guess I'll hop into it real quick. You guys probably don't have much takes on it, but over the weekend there was a pretty highlighted boxing fight. Lomachenko took on Lopez for the undisputed lightweight title in boxing, And Lopez dominated for majority of the fight, getting all the judges' scorecards. I think most of them were like in the 116 to 117 ranges, which were correct. And that is Lomachenko's only second loss, and that makes Lopez, I believe he's the youngest undisputed lightweight champion ever. 23 years and 80-something days, I believe. So congratulations to him on that win. And just really quickly, maybe you guys have an opinion on this. Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, they've been going back and back for a better part of a year now. Obviously, the first fight ends in a controversial draw, and then the second fight is called for, which they eventually get after a while of bickering when it was going to be, where it was going to be. They finally got it, and with that second fight came the agreement of there was going to be a third fight regardless of who won. And Tyson Fury wins the fight, and then the first plan is that, okay, we're going to see them fight in July, and then obviously COVID hits, so we're not seeing that fight in July. And then the next plan was that it was going to happen in December with the hopes of there being fans there, and that fight recently just got scrapped. So we're no longer seeing Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3 in December. So right now, they're saying that Tyson Fury is going to move on, and this was announced a while back. He's going to fight Anthony Joshua at some point, but he's going to have a fight before then. And I don't imagine it'll be against anyone big. He'll probably just take another small fight. For all I know, maybe he does fight someone big, but that's what's next for Tyson Fury. What's next for Deontay Wilder, I have no clue. He could wait for the third Tyson Fury fight. He could go out there and get another fight, but I don't know if he would. I don't want to bring bias out into this, but he makes a lot of excuses for a guy that got, picked apart in the first fight against Tyson Fury, and he, damn well got picked apart in the second fight against Tyson Fury. So it's interesting to see what these guys are going to do next. I look forward. They're eventually going to fight for a third time. It's going to happen. It was signed upon in the contract. So they're going to fight a third time, and, I'll make an early prediction. Tyson Fury probably wins that fight again. And anyone want to say anything on boxing?
I think if they fight again, Tyson Fury just, he'll finish it. He'll end them.
Wilder's next fight will be Logan Paul.
Not if he's fighting Floyd Mayweather.
That's Jake Paul.
Is it?
Yeah.
They're both going to fight Floyd Mayweather then. All right, let's move on from boxing. College football. A fun week in college football. It was a little slow. We saw Clemson dominate once again in a game that was, decided at the end of the first quarter. Alabama, they keep on rolling. Big win over Georgia. Number 5 ranked North Carolina, they fall to unranked Florida State on the road. Notre Dame holds on in a nasty game against Louisville, and Auburn, they lose again. So what did you guys take away from this weekend in college football?
Dan, you want to go first?
I guess I'll touch really quickly just on Clemson. I think I said it last podcast, but just wow. I don't know. Obviously, Alabama had a good game. They beat Georgia, but just this Clemson team just looks dominant, and they have something I think that they can rely on, a defense, which I don't think any other team in college football really has right now. And just Trevor Lawrence, man, 5 touchdowns in the first half, right?
Yep.
I think they took him out eventually because they were up by so much.
Yeah, they put their punter in at quarterback at one point.
Yeah. We already knew this guy was a real deal. He won the national championship freshman year. He lost it last year, but it's just, there's nothing really that hasn't been said about him already that I can say. So just, as of now, that Clemson just have to be the favorites, and you'd be a risky man to bet against them right now.
Very risky. And you'd probably be losing money.
Yep. For that Clemson is so complete. They're such a complete team. Lawrence already he has 15 touchdowns with 1,544 yards in 4 games, I'm pretty sure. And that just, 15 touchdowns in 4 games.
That's Russell Wilson this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's just like basically 4 to 5 touchdowns a game, which is unheard of. They have the running back Travis. I hate
NTN.
last NTN. All right, thank you. That's he has 944 yards rushing. They're just so
That's
complete.
insane.
Dabo Sweeney is just he's such a good coach. So that will be Clemson. I think will make it to the national championship game again, and the team I think they will be playing would be Alabama. Going into the season, Alabama was kind of like you didn't know who was going to start. They had Bryce Young, top freshman quarterback who's coming in, and then they had Tua's younger brother who left, transferred out to Maryland. So, and Mac Jones has always been a backup, and he had when Tua got hurt last year, he had glimpses like he in the bowl game where he did really good against Michigan, and he has so far in 4 games 12 touchdowns, 1,518 yards already. So he's doing good. He's surprising a lot of people. And the thing that made Bama win the game against Georgia is that their defense had 3 interceptions, and there wasn't a lot of sacks on the Alabama part. I think they had 2 sacks all game. So the secondary and with Nick Saban being allowed to coach the game, we're very happy for you that you are now negative for the COVID test. So Saban coming back using that secondary to adjust was a very big component because one day I hope we'll be famous enough to where I can turn around and show you how fast George Pickens and Zamir White are going up and how they stopped them, but we're not that famous yet, so please help.
We're getting there. Follow us on
hopefully,
Instagram, Twitter,
one day.
subscribe to the channel.
But Alabama, I think Alabama and Clemson will be the national championship this year, and then with the wide receiver duo, Alabama just lost Ruggs and Judy, Waddle and Smith, 2 of the fastest wide receivers, and just make unbelievable catch after catch. And they're 2 of the top wide receivers in the draft this year. They will both go in the first round. So just amazing to watch. It's very exciting watching Clemson and Alabama play. Dom mentioned the UNC game upset versus Florida State. Jordan Travis, quarterback, did awesome. He had 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 throwing, and it was 31-7 at halftime. And Florida State didn't score the whole second half. North Carolina came on a run, made it 31-28, and then then they didn't have enough time. But North Carolina, they have been playing really good this year, but I still for being ranked 5, the Big Ten hasn't started yet. I still don't see them as a dominant team. They're going to give Clemson a good game, I think, like they always do. Like last year, they had a chance to beat them, but just Jordan Travis was unbelievable. Offense for the Tar Heels wasn't rolling in the first half, and the defense was just getting walked on. And then the Notre Dame versus Louisville game was very ugly game, boring. The final score was 12-7. Like that's kind of sad, honestly. Their total offensive yards in that game was 238 yards by both teams.
Clemson had that in the first quarter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know Mac Jones threw for 417 yards just in one game. Like that's Notre Dame's the first year in the ACC. They did win the game. They were on fire the past couple weeks. I don't know what happened this week, but just very ugly game. If they want to compete in the ACC, they have to change that. And they play Clemson, I think, 3 weeks, which will be fun to watch. And then
if Clemson doesn't win that game by at least 40, I'll be very surprised.
And then the last game that Dom mentioned was Auburn losing. South Carolina, it's SEC football. Even though South Carolina's not ranked, they're still top players in the nation going there. Bo Nix had 3 interceptions. I want to give a shout out to Shiloh Sanders, freshman, son of Deion Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, starting at cornerback. He had 9 tackles, and his other cornerback corner.
Corner.
Uh,
CB.
CB.
No,
I
yeah,
don't.
no, I know. I'm
I
just
don't, I
9
don't know.
tackles is
I
quite a
know,
bit.
and
9 tackles for a quarterback.
he trucked Bo Nix out of bounds. I think his head's probably still spinning now. And then his other cornerback, J.C. Horn, with 2 interceptions, and there were 3 sacks by South Carolina. So it's not that the line wasn't blocked, and it was that secondary lead-in by the junior J.C. Horn and Shiloh Sanders having a breakout game, and as a freshman starting, and he's going to be, he might not be his dad, but he's going to be something special.
Yeah, I think you look back on those other games, that Alabama-Georgia game and that Florida State-North Carolina game. Those were 2 games that really, a tale of 2 halves. And you look at that North Carolina-Florida State game, and the halftime score of that game was 31-7 Florida State. And then Florida State didn't get a point for the entirety of the second half. And then North Carolina started storming back, and they make it a game. And then, the offense crumbles at the end. And they can't, fix their wrongs, and they end up losing the game. And then the Alabama-Georgia game, it was really, really tight at halftime. Georgia was up, and then Alabama just, went on a tear in the second half, and Georgia didn't get a single point in the second half. So something's happening at halftime with these teams not scoring points in the second half. But I agree with what Anthony said. I think the college football playoff title game is destined to be Alabama-Clemson for the 10 millionth time within the past 10 million years. But it's a fun game to watch as always. The Big Ten does return this weekend. We finally see them need to come back into action. So we'll see Ohio State, Wisconsin, Penn State, Michigan. We'll finally see those teams bounce back. Do you guys think any of those teams can come anywhere near to the top teams right now? We're not going to talk about Clemson, but the Alabamas, the Notre Dames. What team has the best chance to compete in the Big Ten with those teams?
I would say, competing with Notre Dame, I think Ohio State, I think Penn State, sorry. Penn State, Wisconsin, Michigan can all compete with Notre Dame. I'm not very high on Notre Dame. I know that they're ranked 5 and now 3, but I don't think that Notre Dame's just all that. I think Ohio State, Justin Fields, he's one of the best quarterbacks, probably number 2 projected quarterback behind Lawrence. I think he's something special. Ohio State is always firing with weapons. And then, Penn State, James Franklin as a coach, Mekhi Parsons, linebacker. I think Penn State can compete.
I think about Parsons, he's opted out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. But I still think those teams can compete with Notre Dame. The only team that I think has a chance to make it a really close game would be Ohio State with Bama, Georgia, Alabama. I think that's the only team that really in the Big Ten will make it.
I agree with that a little bit, but I'm going to have to disagree with the fact that I don't think Wisconsin and Michigan are really going to be competitive this year. I think maybe you could make the case for Wisconsin. They'll probably end up making the Big Ten title game like they always do because their side of the Big Ten is just kind of Unless, Iowa and Minnesota, they want to step up again this season, which I don't see them doing. I think Minnesota could have a good year like they had last year. But I think realistically, it comes down to that week 2 game between Ohio State and Penn State. I think whoever wins that game is going to go to the Big Ten title game, and they'll probably end up winning that game. And more than likely, they'll end up representing the Big Ten in the college football playoff. But if I think they can compete with the with the Alabamas, with the Georgias. But like we're talking earlier, you're going to run into Clemson. It's not going to end well for you, I don't think.
Well, I think Alabama can give Clemson a run. I truly do.
I think your optimism is misplaced.
Yeah,
I
I
just
think you hit on the T. With the Big Ten and regarding to the team that could compete, I think it has to be Ohio State. They're the outstanding candidate. It's just if Justin Fields can have like a really good game. Not obviously. I don't think they're Clemson's quality. I don't really think anyone's Clemson's quality, but they are definitely. No offense to Penn State, but I think you know, they're the best of what the Big Ten has to offer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to it. We lose them every year, so. But we could beat them this year. I don't know. It's gonna be weird. What would be our whiteout game is not gonna be anything because no one will be in the stands. It'll be a whiteout because all the seats are white. So
Guess there's that.
pain. But college football is gonna start getting really exciting this time of year. Big Ten comes back this week. Pac-12 not that far behind. We're gonna see teams like Oregon, USC, UCLA, Utah. They'll be thrown into the mix. I don't know if any of them will throw their hat in the college football playoff, but it's just good to see those guys playing. And I always love watching that random 10:30 Pac-12 game on Saturday nights. So that's just fun to watch. Does anyone else have anything they want to mention in college football?
Don't think so.
All right, I think that's gonna wrap us up then. I think we've covered everything. Talked about NFL Sunday Week 6. Mentioned the Monday games tomorrow. Talked UFC. Talked a little bit of basketball. Talked college football. We talked soccer. So, real quick, give you a preview of what's to come on the website this week. Tomorrow, Monday, October 19th, there's going to be a UFC 254 preview made by yours truly. I go over 3 fights. The opener of the main card, Iwan Cutelaba versus Magomed Ankalaev. The co-main event between Robert Whittaker and Jared Cannonier. And, of course, the main event between Khabib Nurmagomedov and Justin Gaethje. On Tuesday, Dan is going to drop his Champions League preview. We're still figuring out what we're going to drop on Wednesday, but there's going to be something dropping on Wednesday. Trust me when I say that. Yeah. And on Thursday and Friday, we'll go over on the next podcast what's going to be dropping on Thursday and Friday and throughout the weekend. Anthony's MLB free agency preview went up earlier on Sunday afternoon. Go check that out. My NHL free agency recap went up on Saturday. Go check that out. And go check out everything else on the website. If you haven't had a chance, go watch episode 1 and 2 of the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on the channel, like the video, turn on post notifications. Go follow us on Twitter. Go follow us on Instagram. And I really, really quickly just want to thank everyone for all the support. It's been great. We appreciate you all very much, and we love you all very much. Thank you for supporting. We're happy to be here entertaining for you. This is what we love to do. We're all very happy to do this. And I know if Tennyson were here, he'd be saying the same thing too. Yep. He'll be back in the next episode, we promise. And maybe we'll let him talk a little bit of basketball.
Yeah, and we appreciate the questions that you asked us. And if you have any, you can tweet back at us. You can contact us on the Instagram. If you have any articles or subjects that you want us to cover and write about, just let us know. For the fans, by the fans.
By the fans, for the fans. Yep.
By the fans, for the fans. So just let us know.
That is what we are all about here. Dan, any final words?
I think you guys kind of hit it. Just follow us on socials, continue with us on this journey. We want to get sports news out to you because we like making it, and if you like receiving it, then that's all the better. So just thank you for support and for your continued support.
That is all we need. All right, everyone. We're going to catch you in the next one. I'm Dominic, joined by, of course, the Price brothers, Daniel and Anthony. And we are signing off. Catch you later.
Peace.